Good morning, everyone. It's Rabbi Akiva Males. Today is Friday. It is July 24th. We're getting ready for Shabbos Parshas Devarim, which is also Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos that immediately precedes Tisha B'Av. I want to start by sharing an incident with you, a story, a very heartwarming story. I'm going to go to share screen because I just want to share a picture for while I'm sharing this with you. This is a picture of my late Rosh Yeshiva. I was very privileged to have studied in Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim for about 10 years. I came there, I believe it was 1995. I left about 2005. And during the first 3 years that I was there, I went to the block shir. I went to the shir of its Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Henach Leibowitz Zatzal. Rabbi Leibowitz was born in about 1916 in Lithuania. He passed away in 2008. So when I got to the yeshiva, this is about what Rabbi Leibowitz looked like. He was in his, I would say he was early 80 at that time. And it was a wonderful experience being in his shir. I can't claim to be one of his outstanding disciples, not in the least. I was in his shir, and I tried my best to learn from him and to learn his Torah and to understand the shiurim. Usually had to work very hard with a chavrusa and some of the older guys to understand what it was that he was teaching us. But I did my best, and it was a special time. The yeshiva was much smaller when I first came. There was times where he and his Rebbitzin would eat the Shabbos meal with us, with the boys in the dining room at the yeshiva. He would sing with us. After the meal, we would go into the Beis Medrash and we would have a hashkafa session. He would just talk about whatever was on our minds and address that. It was a point in life that I'm very appreciative of. I mentioned his Rebbitzin, and unfortunately, while I was there, Rebbitzin Leibowitz passed away during the last years that I was in the yeshiva. And Rebbitzin Leibowitz was a tzaddikas. She was such a sweet woman. She was very motherly, I would say grandmotherly to all of the students. And I remember I was a shomer for a bit of the time. I did a portion of the shmira after she passed away. I remember at the funeral home. A couple years, maybe it was a year or two after Rebbitzin Leibowitz passed away, the Rosh Yeshiva remarried. And we were really surprised by this because we just figured here was a man, he was in his mid to upper 80s at that time. Why was he remarrying? But he was very open about it. And he told us, he says, listen, I'm very lonely. And when you're lonely, you can't be happy. And the happier a person is, you can be a better Eved Hashem. You can be a better servant of Hashem. And I want to be happy again. And it's something that we saw that the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Leibowitz, he was able to get remarried at the end of his life. The last couple of years I was in yeshiva, I saw him, it definitely put a new spring in his step. And he was very open with us. He would share with us. He had no problem sharing his emotions and sharing his feelings with us. And right before he got married, I'll never forget this. It must have been he was giving a shir and he was talking a little bit off the cuff. And he was joking with some of the guys. He was saying, I'm a chassan, I'm a groom, I'm going to be getting married soon. So he said that one of the things he had just done is he had gone shopping. He had gotten all new shirts. He's starting in the new marriage. He has to come in with clean new shirts. So I guess he was going to give away his older shirts, and he had gotten new shirts. Then he also told us that he got brand new, really expensive pair of hearing aids. And, guys were kind of, smiling. But someone asked the question. He says, Rabbi, why? Why the new hearing aids? So he says, because I'm getting married. So someone said, but Rabbi was married close to 50 years and didn't have those hearing aids. He was able to hear the Rebbitzin just fine. Why now? Why do you need this new set of hearing aids? So he says, yes, I was able to understand my Rebbitzin for 50 years because we had spent 50 years together. I knew her we knew each other like a book. She knew me, I knew her. I knew all her nuances and everything. So we were able to have a solid relationship. But now I'm getting remarried and my Kala, my new wife, I don't have that knowledge of her, and my hearing isn't what it once was. And the only way I'm going to really be able to build a special relationship is really to be able to hear all of the nuances of when she speaks to me and how she articulates her words. It's that important. You have to be that sensitive to hear what your wives are saying. He was telling us, a bunch of young married men, he's telling you have to really listen to your wives to understand them, and that's how you build a solid relationship. I just thought that was so heartwarming to hear him say this. Here was this man, he was in his mid 80s at that time. And he was saying, as a chassan, he went out, and that was one of the things that was so necessary. He had to purchase that expensive new pair of hearing aids because relationships are built and can only be built and made strong if we truly listen to one another and we hear what the other is saying. Now, why do I think of this? I want to share this with you. I saw something this week in Parshas Devarim that I never noticed before. I saw a Rashi that caught my eye that just made an incredible impression on me. At the beginning of the Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu, it's Shlishi, it's in the third Aliyah. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Bnei Yisrael about the incident. He's reminding them of the incident of the Meraglim, the incident that occurred with the spies. And Moshe Rabbeinu says as follows, "V'tikravun alai kulchem, you all approached me. V'tomru, and you said, Nishlcha nashim lefanenu, let us send out men before us. V'yachberu lanu es haaretz, and they should spy out for us. They should scout out for us the land. The yeshiva osanu davar, and they should return with all sorts of information for us. As haderech asher nalaba, they'll let us know what's the best path to take, what's the best road to take to go in and conquer the land. Besarim asher navo land, and give us information about the cities that we're going to be besieging and that we're going to have to go to war against." That's the plain reading of the text. Rashi, though, quotes an amazing medrash. The pasuk, when it says "Vayeshivu osanu davar," so literally that means bring back information for us. But davar is closely related to another Hebrew word, which is dibur, speech. So listen to what Rashi says, quoting the Sifri, quoting the Medrash. What does it mean, vayeshiva osanu davar? We want to know, be'eza lashon himedavrin. What language do they speak? That's a crucial piece of data. That's some information that we really need to know. What language, what words are the natives living in Canaan? What language, what words are they using? That's what they want to know. So all the commentaries on Rashi are bothered by this. Why is that such crucial information? I know we need strategic information. We need to know how to get in there, which routes to take so we don't get ambushed. What is the high road, the low road? We need to know about the cities. Are they walled, not walled? Why is it so important what language they speak? So I want to share with you three answers that I saw. There are numerous ones, but I want to share with you three of them that I saw. The first one's in the Sifsei Chachamim. The Sifsei Chachamim, in his commentary on Rashi, he says it's a very practical idea. We want to be able to recognize the enemy. Let's say we're going to war as we go into Canaan, and we know one of the native tribes that's there, we're going to war against them. But let's say they try to camouflage themselves. They try to dress up like another people. How will we really recognize who they are? And we'll see that they're enemy. They're not our friends. They're not some ally that we may have from somewhere else, but we'll truly recognize who they are. We need to know what language they speak. We need to be familiar with their words in order to make certain that we don't get deceived. So it's a very practical military tactic, you might say. Another explanation to Rashi is from the Levush, one of the commentators, early commentators to Rashi. So he says as follows, is that, and another very practical battlefield tactic is that we want to understand the commands. If we're going to be marching to war against this enemy, and they're going to be issuing orders to their troops, well, we want to know what's coming. And if the more we can understand their language, we'll have an advantage. We'll have a battlefield advantage if we understand what words, what orders are being issued. So that's how the Levush understands this Rashi. That's the practical ramifications and why it was important for the Meraglim to come back with some information about their language and the words that they use. But then there's a third explanation that I saw and I want to share with you. And this was the Gur Aryeh from the Maharal of Prague. The Maharal says, you know why it was important to know their language? Because if you ever really want to truly understand another human being, it's reflected by the words that they use, the language that they use, how they structure their sentences. We can tell so much about another person based on the way that they speak. And if you really want to understand another party, the only way to do that is to pay close attention to their language, to their speech, to their words. That's the only way that we'll really be able to understand that other party. And what Bnei Yisrael were saying here, what asking for the Meraglim, was yes, we want to understand the land and all that, but we also want to understand its inhabitants. And the only way we could really understand its inhabitants is if we have a better idea of their language and their speech and their patterns, the words they use, because the words that come out of our mouths, they reflect on us and they really help define us. And it gives the other parties in our lives the true opportunity to be able to understand who we are and what's at the nature of our core. And I think this is such an important idea for us to think about now on Shabbos Chazon. We're in the 9 days. We're approaching Tisha B'Av, which is the saddest day on our Jewish calendar. And all of us are trying to think of ways that we can repair some of the damage that exists within Klal Yisrael, within our families, within our communities. And so much of it has to do with the speech, the words that come out of our mouths. And so much of building a relationship means that I need to understand the other, who I'm dealing with. So I think from this Gur Aryeh, we can learn 2 lessons. The first lesson is how important it is to listen. And this is what Bnei Yisrael were saying, why we need davar. We need to know more about their language. We need to know more about their words. We want to understand our enemy. We want to understand that other party. Now, we're not dealing with enemies. We're dealing with our friends, our spouse, our neighbors, our community members. If we want to understand them, if we want to build a relationship with them, we have to listen. And we have to listen to how they speak, how they express themselves. So we have to be conscious of that. In Rabbi Leibowitz's case, that had to do with going out and buying an expensive pair of hearing aids in his 80s. God bless us, we're not at that point where we need those hearing aids, but what we do need to do is stop and listen. It's very easy to go through life not being an intent listener. We need to listen to the people around us. Only by listening to them and will we truly understand them and have the ability to build a solid relationship, a strong relationship. But there's a second lesson from this Maharal as well, is that if words and speech are the most powerful way to define a human being, we have to ask ourselves, am I being really careful? Am I staying on top of the words that are coming out of my mouth, the speech that is coming out of my mouth, the language that's coming out of my mouth? That says so much about me. It reveals so much about me. I'm letting people know who I am, who I truly am, based on the words that are coming out of my mouth. So that ought to give us pause at this time of the year to really assess ourselves and to say, am I being as careful as I should be, as I want to be? Am I projecting the image of myself to others that I truly want to project? So much of that has to do with the words that we choose to use. Those words define us. So again, by listening to others, we have the ability to build a strong relationship, a loving relationship, a friendly relationship. We truly have to listen. But again, words define us and they reflect on us. So we should also think before we speak. And it's a time of the year, appropriate time of the year to say, ask ourselves, are the words that I'm using, are those the words that I really want to use, that I want to be known for? Is this speech that I want to define me? Are these the expressions that I want to reveal and reflect on who I really am? If it's not, I need to make some changes. If it is, that's wonderful, but let's build on it and let's find a way to make it even better. And also to ask myself, am I doing enough to listen to the other? Because only by listening to the other will I truly be able to understand the other. By understanding the other, will I be able to build that relationship that I truly want to. May this be the last year that we spend Shabbos Chazon in some kind of period of mourning and reflecting upon the damage that's been done within Klal Yisrael, within the Jewish people, and to the relationships around us. May we heal. May Hashem enable us all to put our foot forward, to do our part. And once we do our part, Hashem will step in and assist us, enable us to heal the relationships in our lives. And by doing that, we'll be entitled and we'll ask Hashem that we are worthy of having the Beis HaMikdash rebuilt in our day. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.